Today I'm joined by Andy Appleby, who is owner of General Sports Worldwide. Andy, how are you?
Fantastic, Aaron.
Excellent, excellent. So whereabouts in the world are you for the audience?
I'm in Michigan today. So I live just outside of Detroit, about 40 miles north,
Yeah,
and
excellent.
have been here for darn near 35 years now.
Very nice, very nice. Now you were former owner of Derby County.
That's right.
What was that like? What was the experience there?
Well, Aaron, it was first of all a wonderful experience, particularly with all of the fantastic relationships that I built locally, not only with the team but our supporters. It I say wonderful. I mean, it's one of those things in life that you'd never take back anything that you did over that 8-year period, the highs, the lows, all of the crazy experiences. But it's not necessarily something for the faint of heart either, right? So
Yeah.
I certainly needed some time off before getting back into English football. There's almost nothing quite like owning a team in England. The competition and the battle and the meritocracy of it all. I mean, it's as good as it gets from that perspective. It's very difficult to run one of these teams, and so much of the business itself is out of your hands. So much of the games are out of your hands. We used to kind of kid ourselves that because we were excellent at everything else about the business, fantastic customer service, great game presentation, great marketing. But we'd always kid ourselves that we're fantastic at everything except the 90 minutes that matter on Saturday.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we all love about football. It's so unpredictable on the pitch. Let's discuss football or club ownership, and you've mentioned that it's not an easy thing to do. Let's talk a little bit about why would anybody want to get into owning a football club?
Well, I think like most big sports fans like myself, I grew up in New England and always wanted to be GM or own the Boston Red Sox or the Bruins or the Celtics or Patriots. I think it's just a childhood dream for most of us that love sports to actually call the shots and make the trades and do those kind of things. So I don't think there'll ever be a shortage of people that want to own sports teams, especially football teams in England. Now, obviously, the price of poker has gone up so dramatically, and the price of owning a team in England and the player salaries, et cetera, make it so difficult that you can't really be a mere mortal these days and buy teams like you might have been able to in the 60s or 70s or 80s. And that's the same for here in America, even more so, because teams here today are going for billions and billions of dollars. So again, it makes it prohibitive for most of the free world to get involved. But if you have the money and your stock has done well or you've come into quite a bit of money, there's almost nothing like it for very wealthy people because it's another way to keep score. And, even though we had an investor group of 25 or 30, and we all had to write a number of checks over that time period for capital calls and such. But I have to say that, and I could be wrong about this, but I think I'm right, that of the 25 or 30 people, every single one of them misses it. They miss that competition, that 2-hour window. And as I said, I think American sports are fantastic, but I don't know there's anything that can compare to the way games matter in England and, how important it is for the fans, how important it is for the whole community. It's absolutely tremendous. And that 2-hour window, I used to marvel because, when you were at that game and I had my partners with me on the investor side and all the fans, and there was almost nothing like it for having that 2 hours where every single one of us was completely aligned to win that game, from the fans to the players to all of us. And that's very unique, because in this day and age, you know, it's hard to find windows like that where everybody's on the same team.
Yeah, that's excellent, excellent. And so at the start of the process, let's give me an idea of what the process is when you initially think, right, I've got the money, I've got the desire, I've got the skill set. What's the process to go and looking for a club and then actually starting the process?
Well, in our case, we were looking at a number of American teams, but a friend of mine said you ought to look at these teams in England. And in my thought process was, you know, find either a first division team that was sort of on the way down, or a second division team that we could kind of get at a second division price and try to drive it up to the Premier League. And you know, I also felt like we could bring some of our American marketing know-how there, and several of those skill sets. But the big issue for me was having been through stadium builds and arena and ballpark, you know, construction projects. For me, it was important to try to find a club that already had that infrastructure built, had their stadium built, had their wonderful training academy. And, you know, Derby was sort of perfect for us because it had a great stadium. It had, you know, one of the very, very best training academies in the world. And especially so now with all the money that's been invested in it over the last several years. Yeah, so we were very much into you know, finding that you know, where so many other clubs, you know, still need stadiums, or still playing in 1800s stadiums, you know, late 19th century stadiums. And I knew from the other experiences, like, gosh, do we want 5 years of meetings just around a stadium? We've got enough things and to worry about. So Derby was perfect from the perspective of being able to, you know, hit the ground running, if you will, and just worry about football. One of our challenges, Aaron, if you go back in the history of what we did, is if you had a crystal ball, you wouldn't have necessarily bought a team January 25th, 2008, where 6 months later, the whole world collapsed financially. And I think a lot of businesses were very much negatively affected. Maybe every business was negatively affected worldwide. Every team was negatively affected worldwide. But I could have made an argument that our team was more negatively affected than just about any, because we had been coming down from the Premier League. You know, we had the lowest points total in history. We also made the mistake just before we actually bought the club. Our powers that be at that time bought 9 or 10 players in that January window, and in many ways there's no way we should have done that, because we were already darn near mathematically eliminated anyway. So we had about 50 some players to dispose of. I say that in a clinical way, but you know what I'm saying, that we had to find a way to move some of those players. And in our business plan originally, we had thought that we would sell this player for £3 million, this player for $2 million, this player for 400,000. And what happened, of course, was when we went to sell all those players, the financial crisis hit, and you know, many of those players that we were planning on selling, we actually had to buy out their 4-year contract. So our business plan was very much upside down, you know, right around that time of the financial crisis. And we also at that moment had gotten off to a rough start. You know, we all were kind of hoping, like every Premier League team, that they just bounce right back up. And a lot of times that does happen, of course, as you know, but many times it doesn't. And we get off to a horrid start. And so a lot of our players weren't exactly showcased. So, we didn't have a real seller's market with the financial crisis and the fact that we weren't playing very well in the second division either. So anyway, but that's always the, opportunity as well, and necessity is the mother of invention. So at that moment, with our business plan upside down, it required me to really reach out to different investors to come on board, because what we thought we would need, based on selling a lot of those players, and when they weren't there, it forced me to go out and look for new investors. But when I say opportunity, I reached out to a number of the first families of the Middle East and lots of folks here in America. And I was very successful in terms of bringing on new investors, sort of a second wave of investor. And, we were able to not just survive, but really put together one of the great groups of investors and character people. I mean, the people that were in our group are not only some of the best business people in the world, but just fantastic people. And, we kind of lived and died through that whole time.
Yeah, and that's certainly a baptism of fire into the world of English football for you. What and it obviously didn't put you off, because you're still involved in the whole process of takeovers, etc. Can you just give me an idea of how, what you learned from that whole scenario when you were involved with Derby, and what you do now to advise new people who maybe are coming to you looking to invest in football clubs?
Yeah, so I've really, the whole general sports worldwide has been a fascinating journey so far. And really, when it comes to player representation, being an agent, when it comes to brokering team shirt, game shirt, jersey deals, from a sponsor perspective, we're one of the top brokerages in sports, where brands and teams can kind of come together, and we can help with that process. Or with the team sales, mergers and acquisitions division that we're just starting now. I don't know worldwide, either here in America or in Europe or the UK, I don't know of another company and or divisions of this company that features someone like myself that has both sold every ticket, suite, sponsorship in team sports, has managed at every level of team sports, and also owned at every level of team sports. And I've been very judicious in terms of recruiting the best people that I know in all the world. And, when it comes to Sam Rush, he's someone that I had a very strong trust with. We had each other's back for those 4 years in Derby. And when you have someone where you go through that process, where you have that trust factor and they're super smart, this was such a great opportunity to get into the player representation business, because again, I had someone I could trust there. And Jez Moxie, Jez is someone that I've had a huge amount of respect for the entire time we've known each other. And, as I say in some of the articles, I mean, I always felt like he was way smarter than our guys doing the player deals. And so I'm so happy to have him. But again, when it comes to Sam, or it comes to Jez, they're not just top executives. I mean, they were executive of the year in English football in 2014-15, which was Sam, and 2016, which was Jez. So what does it mean to have that experience on the other side of the fence? Well, I think it makes a great deal of experience in terms of not just dealing with owners that want to sell their teams, but more specifically with high net worth individuals that want to get into this business. And this business right now has been primarily bankers and lawyers that have sold these teams for wealthy team owners. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're exceptional people. They know how to structure deals. I'm friends with most of those people in the world. But I felt like we could add a different dimension, not only great deal making and structuring, but also advisement to really be able to advise these incoming high net worth individuals, because almost all of them that own sports teams over the years made their money outside of sports and wanted to have some fun with it. But yet, if you polled virtually every owner that has owned teams over the last 50 years, they would tell you that they got the keys at 4 o'clock on a Tuesday and didn't know the first thing to do with the team. So our job, my job, Jez's job, is to really educate an incoming owner, and then also be able to analyze the team, analyze the squad, the players, the academy, the stadium, do things, really understand their financials. What are their debts? Where are their upcoming liabilities? But then also to very much understand the culture. I can give you an example of me buying a team. Here I thought I was ready for it. Here I thought I was a smart young guy that had been very successful in the US. But I have to say that I don't think anything can prepare someone for the responsibility of owning one of these clubs. Again, no matter what they tell you, when you're in the fire and you see how important each result is to those fans and supporters, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it's not life or death, but it's pretty close. And so it is a gigantic responsibility. One of the things that I joke about now, but it wasn't very funny, during the time we owned the team, is I think I counted up a few years ago, Aaron, that I think I made 193 payrolls, which again doesn't sound like much for the average business, like not that great of an accomplishment. But owning Darby County, that was a great accomplishment, because the players, the salaries and all of those things conspiring together. And there were a few sleepless nights, maybe more than a few, because this isn't just like anything else. This is such a trust and a community trust. And I felt, gosh, if we ever miss payroll, my and all my investor name will be mud for the rest of creation. So we always found a way, even through difficult times. It was in my opinion, kind of a great accomplishment.
Yeah, excellent. And I have to ask this question. Obviously, the last couple of days in England, we've had the uproar caused by the 6 Premier League clubs and the 12 in Spain and Italy about their breakaway for a European Super League. Do you think, what's your opinion on that? And do you think that they failed to understand as owners? Obviously, it was the owners that were involved in this. As owners, do you think they took their eye off the ball? You said the community links and the passion that exists within the football pyramid. Do you think they took their eye off that for a moment and just got it completely wrong? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I have 2 opinions. One, I completely understood where they were coming from. They in large part kind of are the #1 teams in the world. Certainly on some level, they probably deserve more. And number 2, and I'm guessing the American owners felt this way, but I thought initially, gosh, here was a way to give a guarantee, much the same way as our American system here, So I really felt like overnight those teams were worth potentially 50% more than they were the night before, just because of that guarantee. We have lots of sports teams here in America that have really failed to achieve much over the last 40, 50, 60 years. And in England, they'd be fifth division by now. But instead, they're worth $3 or $4 billion here in America.
Yeah.
And so, that whole the whole idea of taking away relegation, which would have essentially done that for those 15 teams, was very appealing to them. So from an ownership perspective, I see it, and clearly those teams would have received a lot more money and been worth a lot more financially. But that said, as you say, I think everyone probably underestimated the local, the national, and the world effect of what that was. And like anything in life, you always kind of look back and say, oh, we should have seen that. And maybe you and others did see that prior to it happening, but we should have seen it, because even with the smallest amount of rule changes that are ever suggested in England, it's bloody murder. For something like this, so cataclysmic, there was probably a need to really do this over a period of time, to do all kinds of focus groups, to get the fans in the thought process, understand what it would mean to them, that it wouldn't be negative to them, that kind of a thing. So, obviously, if they had a chance to do it over again, they would, sort of phase the announcement in over 6 months and do a whole lot more work on their own side.
Yeah, it took everybody by surprise, but it was hardly surprising when it came along. But in terms of advising someone who's selling a club, or to someone who wants to buy the club, what pitfalls would you give them an idea of when owning a football club? What are the key things that you would say to them to be aware of?
Well, obviously, some are obvious, Aaron, such as, going in with your eyes wide open, to, try to give them a sense of what they're buying. I mean, they're buying, such a marvelous, wonderful masterpiece, but yet it's very fragile. You really have to handle it with kid gloves and handle the supporters. And again, you're not just, you're dealing with not just their emotions, but really in many cases their lives. They're so tied to that club. And, just the fact, like Derby County, to be the only game in town for 140 years. I mean, it's really incredible. I mean, we are all diehard sport fans in America. Here in Detroit, we have 4 major teams, but we also have the colleges. So college American football for University of Michigan, Michigan State, college basketball for Michigan, Michigan State. So we have 8 or 9 different clubs to get behind. And when the Tigers lose in the last inning of the World Series, it's terrible, but the Lions game is Sunday. But in England, obviously Derby County, that we were all they had. And so it's 24/7, 365. And I mean that, because there's not a day go by, even in the summer, where my email wasn't completely full when I woke up with, why aren't we buying this person? Why aren't we buying that? Why did we buy that person? And you're not spending enough money. So it was an 8-year real roller coaster and merry-go-round as well. With these seasons being 10-month seasons, and being as healthy and resilient and proactive as I am, even I needed a break after 10 months of that type of pressure. The problem is when you hear of a 10-month season, what does that tell you? Well, 2 months later, you're starting again. And so it was 8 years of like really 24/7 effort. And so you have to advise people on that it's so much fun, and there's nothing like looking forward to a game every week for your club. And just almost nothing more joyful than being at the stadium with all the fans when you score, and even when you have heartbreaking defeats, as we did at Wembley in 2014 versus QPR. You almost felt afterwards that it was better to have played and lost than not to have played. Now, not everyone would think that, but it was it was almost a beautiful way to lose, even though it was heartbreaking. And my wife didn't stop crying for literally 10 days. And I'm sure a lot of our fans didn't either. But I mean, it's the beautiful thing about sports, and being the custodian of that, or the owner of that club, is I always kid people about that weekend. Never were we so happy on that Friday night before the Wembley game, with all our fans at the Wembley hotel that we were at, and it was just the most wonderful time. Everyone wanting to take pictures with everyone. And then, never more sad than that evening. But again, that's sports. And, I just think it's a wonderful thing to be a part of from a business perspective. And if you can afford it, the greatest thing is to own one of these teams.
Yeah. And in terms of governance, how difficult is it to work with the footballing authorities within a nation?
Well, I think everything's great if you want it to be just status quo. In our case, we really felt and feel that at the time that, on the ownership side, you feel that, oh, we really need a salary cap, because it kind of works in America largely with most of our sports. But in order to get really anything done, it takes an overwhelming amount of lobbying and support, and which again kind of gets back to that Super League. What a huge endeavor, but if they would have needed almost a year's worth of PR to smooth that out, and lots of owner supporter meetings and things of that nature, just again allaying the fears that we're going to be stronger, bigger, and better than ever. But they weren't really able to say that. But back to your question, dealing with the leagues was easy as long as you didn't really want to make any changes.
Excellent. And I'll finish up on kind of where should I finish? It's a difficult one to finish, because you could talk all day about owning a club and your experience of owning a club. So let's finish on. Is there any chance of you coming back to own a club? Are there any clubs that you think are worth investing in? What's your thoughts on the potential of owning a club in the UK at the moment?
Yeah, so Aaron, absolutely. At some point, there could definitely be a way to get back in the game in that way. But I'm very happy to be able to advise and to broker deals now. So I think for me at this point in my career, it's the best thing that I can do, and best thing to be a part of is helping people to make their dreams come true. And now, that said, in 6 or 7 years, if we decide to sell this agency, which would be somewhat likely, I could imagine coming back and participating in some way with a team if we found the right situation. I know, for instance, that since the day we bought Derby, my wife would love to live in England. So that could be something in the future where maybe we we do something like that, live there for a year or two to see that experience. But right now, I'm very happy with our plan, and I think that not only can we do well financially with the plan that we have because of all the relationships and experience that we have, but we can do good also, and meaning good, like, really helping English football to get better, to be more fiscally responsible, and to really help these new owners come in and not just achieve their dreams, but do it in a very responsible way.
Yeah, excellent. Andy, we'll leave it there, and thank you for taking the time to speak to us, and wish you well.
Okay, Aaron, sounds good. Thanks so much for your time today.
Not a problem.